What happens when a continent breaks apart? A rift valley. Example here is Africa. We have another rift valley in North America, New Madrid seismic zone and the Real Foot rift zone. That should actually be called New Madrid Rift Valley because the continental plate there is splitting apart and dipping towards the southeast from what the geologists of USGS are telling us. But now we're talking about what happens in the splitting Africa region. This is by The Conversation. Eric Tolver, Associate Professor of Geology, University of Western Australia. Modern-day Africa was the keystone of Gondwana, the aggregated mass of southern continents that coexisted for nearly 400 million years. That supercontinent had since split apart, creating the land masses we now recognize as South America, Australia, India, Madagascar, Antarctica, and of course Africa. And now a new study published in Nature Geosciences is shedding light on how Africa is breaking up as well. For the greater part of the Phanerozoic eon, 500 million years ago up to the current era, the Gondwana continent shared a common history and were populated by the same plants and animals. These continents were also marked by a climactic history that indicates a changing paleogeographic position, or the location of the continents over time, of this enormous landmass, roughly twice the size of modern Eurasia. Things began to change approximately 180 million years ago as the modern South Atlantic Ocean, Southern Ocean, and Indian Oceans began to form, and one by one, Africa's Gondwana partners began drifting away. The modern-day East African Rift, an active tectonic plate boundary and one of the geological wonders of the world, is the site of the most recent of these separations and provides a glimpse of how continents break apart. This is the focus of the current paper in Nature Geosciences by sedimentologist Eric Roberts of James Cook University and colleagues at several Australian and American institutions. Curiously, for a process that leads to the creation of a topographic or basin inundated by seawater, that is the Red Sea, to the north of the East African Rift. For instance, the first stages in the splintering of a stable continent are marked by an increase in surface elevation. Like the proverbial floating iceberg, which is 90% underwater, the elevation of continents buoys the principle of isostasy. Less dense materials float on top of the denser materials. The elevation of continents reflects the thickness of their crust, which is composed of less dense material than the mantle rocks below. Mountains are high because of their thick root, which is approximately twice as thick as for the average continent. Southern and Eastern Africa are different, though, as they have an ordinary thickness crust and yet are elevated by more than 1 kilometer above the average continent. So why did the continent rise? Well, it's down to deep-seated mantle processes occurring far below the root of the continent. And here upwellings along the margins of the thermochemical pile. A massive zone of hotter or less dense material are lifting the entire southern and eastern margins of Africa. This process is much like a boat being lifted by the rising tide, and this uplift, which began in the mid-Cretaceous period, which is about roughly 100 million years ago, is causing the African continent to literally break apart. The cracks that form will eventually be filled with dense mafic rock, material rich in magnesium and iron, that forms the modern oceanic crust. When this uplift occurred, is an enduring question for geologists, and one that Roberts and his colleagues have begun to answer from their study of the Rukwa Rift Basin, the western, presently non-volcanic branch of the East African Rift System, Roberts and his colleagues were able to reconstruct the shifting course of rivers that mark this dynamic landscape. The researchers first matched the pattern of magnetic reversals. Geomagnetic reversal, according to Wikipedia, found in the sediments deposited by the rivers to the known history of Earth's geomagnetic field known as the global polarity timescale. Rocks contain lots of magnetic minerals that can be frozen in place when the rock forms, aligning with the Earth's magnetic field at the time. The Earth's geomagnetic field has undergone many changes in direction, though geological time periodically switching from a normal polarity, when, like today, the North Magnetic Pole points to the North Pole, to a reverse polarity when the North Magnetic Pole points to the planet's South Pole. Next, the researchers determined the age of volcanic ashes deposited on the ancient riverbanks from nearby low-extinct volcanoes, now extinct. Some volcanic materials are rich in radioactive elements such as uranium. Since the rate at which these radioactive elements break down is known very precisely, the age of the mineral can be determined by measuring the ratio of atoms of the present isotope such as uranium-238 to the daughter isotope created by the decay of the parent isotope. The agreement between the volcanic rocks interbedded with the fluvial sediments from rivers and streams and the record of magnetic reversals recorded by the sediments indicates these rocks were being deposited by Oligocene rivers 25 million years ago, some 14 million years earlier than previously estimated. The researchers extended their analysis to the sediments along being carried by these ancient rivers. Now, at some point, the Congo River, they say, started flowing in the opposite direction. Rivers flow over bedrock provinces with different geological ages. As the river scours through the bedrock, producing sediment, this material is carried downstream. If the course of the river changes, say in response to surface uplift, then the sediment being carried by the river will reflect a change in source region, and by determining the age of the minerals within the ancient river sands, Roberts and colleagues were able to fingerprint the various regions the river had once flowed through. The researchers observed that the Cretaceous Congo River was largely flowing to the northwest, with sediments mainly derived from the geological provinces to the southeast. This is the same direction the Congo River currently flows in now. But by the Oligocene, roughly 35 to 23 million years ago, the river had reversed course entirely, flowing to the southeast. Since changing the direction of the river's flow requires a major reorganization of continental topography, picture the Amazon River flowing west towards the Andes, the researchers conclude that uplift of eastern Africa was already underway some 25 million years ago. The changing record of this ancient river's flow direction now demonstrates when and where the uplift of the eastern Africa continent began. The first step in the breakup of Africa is well underway. Sure, it might still be millions of years before Africa splits into two, but this new research provides a valuable insight about the ever-changing surface of our planet. You might even call it groundbreaking, quote unquote. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.